welcome to In the Heart of the Vault podcast. Super excited to have you all here with us today. I'm even more excited to have this incredible woman on tonight for me, obviously morning in the UK, Nicola. I'm going to dive straight in. As we do every single week, we're going to open that vault and share some incredible stories. And this one, me and this lady connected through social media, got to love social media, and we were literally on the phone, I think, for a good few hours and just to it. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome the beautiful Nicola today. So hi, Nicola.
Lindsay, how are you? And thank you so much, A, for connecting. And, you know, I feel we've had many lives together.
Yeah.
And B, for inviting me onto your amazing podcast. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure. So, Nicola, let's learn a bit more. I like to do this. So let's learn a little bit more about you. So before you had your beautiful Lucas, let's go back a bit. What was Nicola like then?
Before I had Lucas, I was a little bit chaotic. Didn't really know who I was a people pleaser, was masking under lots and lots of layers. You know, growing up was told I wasn't good enough, too loud, too shiny, thick, stupid, all of this. And it wasn't told to me, you know, well, it was told to me by people who should have cared for me, really.
Yeah.
And it was around step parents and stuff like that. Yeah, so I grew up confused, trying to people please, and just, you know, needed to be loved and told, but didn't think I was as beautiful as a person that I was. And funnily, actually, Lindsay, I was clearing out my attic the other day.
Yeah.
I've moved to a new house. Well, I've been here 3 years. And so I thought, okay, it's time for me to go up and clear the attic. You know, and it was difficult for me because there was stuff up there from Lucas and things like that.
Yeah.
And I came across pictures of me when I lived in Dubai, because I did live in Dubai for 5 years. And I looked at those pictures and I was like, wow, I was a bit special, but didn't think I was.
Oh.
You know, very relaxed, very chilled, lovely figure, nice face, you know. And then I remember that, you know, there's some crazy, I had an amazing time in Dubai.
How old were you then?
I was mid-20s, so I was 25, 26 when I moved out there, 25, and I left just before it was 2000. So I had an amazing time, and it was the mid-90s, so it was a completely different place than is now.
Yeah.
And worked in real estate. And at that time, you couldn't buy a property. So it was just before they did the islands and everything. I left just before that kind of really got underway. And I worked for a local company, a local Dubai company. And at that time, you know, you couldn't buy a property, but you could rent a property. So I dealt with all residential lettings. I had an amazing time. Made a lot of money, spent a lot of money, partied hard. You know, really, yeah, I should have been saving and all of that, but a time when I was trying to be something that I wasn't really. And also it was a poignant time because I met one of my best friends out there, Adriana, and she's from Chicago. And that really was my first major, or she was my first major loss, because she died at 31.
Wow.
Of cancer. And I was absolutely devastated because we put in all these plans. She was going to be a godparent to children that I, you know, if I ever had children, I didn't know if I was going to.
Yeah.
She was going to be the godparent. I was going to be her godparent if she had children. And we were going to rule the world together, you know. We had such a connection. We met in Dubai and we just had such a massive connection. You know, you just feel, I've met you before, surely in a past life. We were like sisters, and it was a great friendship. And actually, just outside my office here, I have a beautiful framed picture of her and I, with a gorgeous letter that she sent to me. And basically that was about me allowing her to allow herself to be herself.
Yeah.
Because again, she was from a family where she had to put on lots of masks and lots of layers. So yeah,
So for you too, you obviously felt safe in that friendship for yourself to be who you were. You know, for you to be yourself, for that relationship to grow, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's such a transient place, Dubai, or I will talk about from the time I was there. It's a very transient place, and people come and people go, and people can be whoever they want to be when they're there. There's nobody, people arrive from all parts of the world, and nobody really knows your background. But Adriana really opened up to me. And when I think about the type of person that she was and the family she came from, Italian, Chicago, I won't say anything else. She saw a lot and she heard a lot. So she was amazing, and she taught me so much. And I can remember, we used to have yoga sessions together. We had a woman who used to come to the house, and we'd have private yoga sessions. And honestly, the bond was just amazing. It was amazing. And I was devastated when she died, really devastated.
Do you still keep in contact with her family?
Do you know, I did. And I lost contact with them, really. And I was thinking about that the other day, around the time when my brother died. I kind of, I lost contact, well, probably a little bit before that, but I did used to keep in touch with her sisters.
Yeah.
So maybe it's time for me to reach out and check in and see how they are.
So with that grief with your best friend, did you, and then obviously you just mentioned about your brother too, which we'll dive into, but do you feel, looking back now at that, did you deal with that grief? That, I mean, there is no right or wrong way, we both know that, but do you feel like you even dealt with it at the time?
Possibly not. I remember that I went to live with my father for about 6 months, and there was 2 reasons I did that. One, because I'd never lived with my father. I'd never had him there growing up. So that was something I thought, I need to kind of go and see what this is all about, because I kind of put him on a pedestal. And interestingly enough, I stepped away from my father, actually, probably 3 years before Lucas died. I stepped away from him. And then he did come back into my life, really just for about 2 weeks, when Lucas died. But that's another story, and an interesting one, actually.
That period that you stayed with your dad for the 6 months, do you feel it was what you needed at that time? Again, whether right or wrong for you, but at that time that was a decision you made.
It was definitely something that I needed, because I also needed to understand what my relationship is and was with him. But also I thought that would be healing time, but he's the sort of person that he doesn't want to see your crying. He doesn't want to see your pain. He doesn't believe in it. It's kind of just get on with it. So it was tricky. So I don't think I really dealt with my grief then. And I totally understand this now, because of the different work that I've done on myself, and then the training I've done as well.
That forms a pattern, doesn't it? You mentioned about your brother before. What happened with your brother?
So Paul, oh my God, I love Paul so much. We had such a gorgeous relationship with him. He was a very dry sense of humour. He actually spent a lot of time in Australia. What he used to do, he was an electrician. He'd work really hard, save up, and then he would travel around the world. And he went to Australia. And he went to South America, Australia, loads of different places. And I've got a picture of him skydiving in Australia.
Really?
But he got off the plane in Australia and apparently got rushed to hospital because he had some kind, I think it was in his arm or his leg. He had some poisoning, and poison was going through his body. I don't know, his leg went, he had a vein that went dark or something. Anyway, he got rushed to hospital as soon as he landed in Australia.
Oh, wow.
Had to stay in hospital a little bit. But he had an amazing time in Australia. So that's why I've got to definitely get over there. So
Yeah.
Paul was fantastic. He was 6'7", Paul. He was huge. Scouse as you like. And it's just a brilliant sense of humour. The two of us.
What was the age gap between you two?
Well, 9 years. Yeah, Paul was. 9 years between Paul and I.
Right.
And he was just. I loved him. I just loved him. I babysat him and everything growing up, and he was just brilliant. And we had a great relationship. But he was troubled. And he always said to me, you know what, Nicola, I will never see 30. And I say, why, Paul? And he'd say, because this just doesn't feel right for me, this life. He said, people are cruel. And I remember I said to him, 29 at the time, and he came to live with me a few times, and he said, it just doesn't feel right, this life. People are very cruel to each other. And I don't want to bring children into this world, and it just doesn't feel right. And I remember saying to him, I've got a really good psychiatrist. Let me come and pick you up, because he lived down south, and I'll take you and I'll bring you back. And he went, no, because then I have to admit that I'm a nutter. He said, no, I don't want to do that. So sadly, I had Lucas in 2000. I had Lucas in September 2006, and Paul took his own life in December 2006 on Boxing Day. Very devastating, and I was the one who had to tell my mom, and it was it was awful. And I remember that sound that came out of my mother's mouth when I told her, that scream. And I thought, God, I hope I never hear that again. And of course I did. I heard it from myself.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's so tragic. And just, you got to wonder, don't you, for him at such a young age to know that, and then just feel so, it almost sounded like he was a troubled soul, but like you said, but almost sounded like he just felt like he was a misfit in this world. But such a beautiful soul, like it's.
Yeah.
Do you feel if he got the right help, it would have helped him? I mean, it's all ifs and buts, isn't it?
Yeah, you know what? I absolutely do, because, and I actually think that because he took his own life, and the way he did it was not great, but I do believe he tried to get help, because I think he got scared, or he realised, because he came down the stairs of his apartment and knocked on the door next door, but it was early hours in the morning. And I guess they thought it was just someone drunk. And then sadly, he collapsed in the hallway of his apartment and died. And then the next day, his friend came round, because they planned, to go out together. And his friend came round, and he couldn't open the door. And Paul, as I say, Paul was a big lad. And then he gently forced the door open, and he could see Paul was behind the door. So heartbreaking. And it's just so heartbreaking, he didn't deserve that. And that's, and I think as well, God, if I knew then what I know now, then what I know now. But I again, I feel Paul around me, and when I had Lucas, I felt him, a massive presence around Lucas.
Yeah, and so here you are, a brand new mom, like obviously beside yourself with happiness, because you've got this beautiful bundle of joy, but and still hormones are through the roof, a bit all over the place anyway, as we are moms, aren't you? Certainly, your firstborn and that first few months, and then you get delivered the news that no one ever wants to hear, about you. How did you, I'm imagining you're sleep deprived at the time anyway. You can almost assume that, can't you, with most moms, but and then being delivered that news. Well,
I didn't know. Firstly, I didn't know if I was ever going to be a mum, so that was a real, surprise, and I'm very excited. And I was very aware about, my mental health around giving birth and having a child and all of that. So I didn't really grieve for Paul, and I was also, my mom kind of stepped away, because now I get it. I didn't really get it then, but I totally get it now.
Yeah.
She stepped away, and she couldn't really be around myself or Lucas because it was too painful for her.
Yeah.
I didn't really get that time.
Yeah.
So I was managing all of that, and then of course managing what was going on at home. And so I didn't really grieve for Paul at that point. When I think about that now, I didn't grieve for him because I was too busy being, as you quite rightly said, I'd had a baby, I'd had a son, and I was excited about all of that. So I didn't give myself the time or the space to grieve about Paul, and I kind of pushed that to one side and carried on.
Yeah. Which
keeping
is
it together and being mum.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you do, don't you? Was there, with your mom at the time, obviously you being a new mom yourself, and then, your mom, absolutely heartbroken having lost her son. Was there any kind of resentment there with you for that, you being a mom, and then your mom kind of, you not understanding it, and obviously, unfortunately, you do more than others now. But is there any kind of resentment or anything for you at that time? Or were you just...
There was probably resentment but then at the same time, I understood that, it was painful for her to see me with Lucas. And she adored Lucas. And don't forget, we had a couple of months, before Paul took his own life. And so, but I was busy being a mom and kind of keeping my stuff together and making sure everything was okay around me and with my family. And I understood that, my mom just needed time and space. And I did get it on one level, but on another level, I thought, here we go. Yeah. And I've always had a tricky relationship with my mom anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
She's the kind of person who doesn't share her feelings. She's from that era where you don't wash your dirty laundry in public and you push everything down. And I can see that this is an issue now because she's not really dealt with the death of my brother. She's not really dealt with the death of my son. And she's overweight. She has arthritis. She has edema. She's just got through cancer. And I always think, that's because when you depress and you push things down, it comes out in other ways.
We've spoke about that quite a few times with different guests who've come on the podcast. And you're so right, that era, obviously our parents would be around the same age. And, I know, it comes from, it certainly did with my family, but it comes from a place of love, but that whole let's crack on mentality. And not having the tools then. We're so blessed with all these incredible tools now to use, and therapists like yourself, and social media, as much as it can be a hindrance, it is also a beautiful, powerful tool as well, all these different platforms. But they didn't have that. And then if everyone was kind of very private and keep it all, don't talk about it, then they were never going to have those conversations, were they? Just they dealt with it the best they could at that time. So it's a sad thing, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And I'm all about talk about it. Even now, when I talk to her or I start to delve, she says, don't do that therapy thing on me. I'm not doing that therapy thing. I'm just checking in, see how you do it. I'm fine. So,
Yeah, you just, and I think there is a point of no return as well, isn't there? Like, I know you can only help them if they've got to want to help themselves first, but I think that they're so set in the ways where you've just got to just let it go. So there you are with beautiful Lucas, the first years with him leading up to school time, him starting prep and nursery and all those things. Did you adapt to motherhood really well? Like, did you
Oh my gosh, I loved being a mom, and I was like jumped in. And because at times my mother wasn't not there for me growing up. I had a fantastic time being a mum. I loved being a mum. And I was, took Lucas to school every morning. I did get help going forward because sadly Lucas's dad left us when Lucas was nearly 5. And then my mum and my aunt were able to step in and support me. So they'd pick up while I was working because I was working full time. And but I loved being a mum. So I'd rock up, in the high heels, dress for work and all that. Take him to school. If there was story time or anything, I would be there to read a story, or sports there, everything. I was always there for Lucas, always.
Yeah, love that. Your face just lights
Yeah.
up when you talk.
Oh God, he was such a beautiful character, he had no fear, Lucas. And I don't know if you know this character, Sporticus, but he was so into Sporticus when he was a kid. So
Yeah.
he'd always eat healthy foods anyway, and he was always running about, exercising, and he was lovely. And I always brought him up to be kind, to share and care. So as I say, if he had friends round, I'd say, your friends can play with all of your toys because they're your toys, and when they go you can have them anytime. So if somebody wants to play with something, just allow that.
Yeah.
He was just a very kind, considerate, caring child, and that's how I brought him up.
Yeah, beautiful. And how did you adapt, and how did he adapt to being at home with you and dad, like you and his dad separating and splitting up? How did that work for you?
I mean, kids are so resilient and they just bounce back. And his dad and I, it was a shock when his dad left, because I thought everything was fine. But anyway, and so that was a big shock. But one thing that I always said, because my mum was a single parent till I was 5, and I didn't want that for myself. And I always said when I got pregnant, I remember saying to Lucas's dad, is that you sure, that you want a child? Because, I don't want to be left. I don't want to ever be a single parent. And he was like, yeah. So, I was shocked. Yeah. But children are resilient and they do adapt. And, I then became mum and dad. So I was the one anyway who would go to the rugby training. I was the one who would go camping. And let me tell you, the first time that I went camping with the Cubs, it was out of my comfort zone because I'm not a camper. But I adapted. So very proud of myself. And we just got on with it. And I was so lucky that my mum and my auntie Anne stepped up and really helped me. So they would help with pickups. Mum would come and stay with me for a few days in the week. Then she'd go, and then Anne would come and pick up for me. And it was great. And I had a job then. I was sales and marketing. And I had a job. As long as I did my job, I could, make sure that I could pick up as well, or do sports days or anything like that. So I was always there for Lucas.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's just precious times, hey? Just precious.
It really is. And I remember, my mum wasn't really there for me because it was different times and she was working and all of that. So I just knew that the things that happened in my younger life, my childhood, that I didn't like, I didn't want that for Lucas. Yeah. So I made sure that I showed up and I was there. And also, because of what had happened to Paul, I always made sure that Lucas knew that he could talk to me about anything and everything. And we had an amazing relationship, beautiful relationship.
Beautiful, open communication, because that's the key.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Key. Yeah.
And particularly boys, because they don't talk, they're not as open as girls, I don't think.
Yeah.
So it was so important for me to make sure that he felt comfortable enough that he could talk to me about anything and everything. And he did, we had some amazing conversations, and we had each other's back, kind of thing. It was lovely.
And I think with, with conversations with children, certainly I've noticed, and even talking to friends or family or the guest, they are different, boy and girl, and then obviously different personalities, and it doesn't mean they're a girl, they're a talker. It can be the opposite. But I find conversation is not always, it's not to be planned and okay, we're going to have a big chat. It doesn't come freely like that. It's more of, driving from A to B, or at night time, I feel, when they just bring something up, or do you know what I mean? Like, it's not just sit down this agenda. You just got to be open where it goes, and then just to feel completely relaxed, which is such a beautiful thing. And not even just with kids, with adults as well. That's
Totally. And part of what the therapy that I do now, part of that, I do walking, talking therapy as well. So, I put them, we have a little chat before, and then we'll just go out for a walk. And that is so freeing, so opening for the client. And it's beautiful, that, because sometimes people don't have that opportunity to go walking and talking. So it's amazing.
I actually do, both Evie and I do, our therapist, we do walk talk therapy on the beach. And it's incredible. Like, it's just such a beautiful thing. And there is, I mean, we might save that for another recording, but you'd know more about it because this is your career. But it engages your brain a lot easier because you're moving and almost focusing on the feet, left, right.
Yeah.
Something opens in the brain and kind of switches. And I think the same kind of, I've had some really deep conversations with friends when I'm driving and you're not looking at them. And that's what our therapist will say the same. When you're not looking at people, they tend to open up more because it's not, they just feel comfortable. So it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, for sure.
And it's that mindfulness, the getting out, the seeing, the hearing, the smells, it's the senses. So everything, I get them to really open up to their senses, and then we just start walking. And also when I'm talking to them, I'm putting them in a light trance, and so they're just walking. It's beautiful. And when we get back, like, where have we just been for a walk?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? So beautiful for so many reasons.
So powerful. And my clinic is right near the canal. So we walk along the canal, and it's just very special. Very special.
I love that. Fast forward a few years, and with your permission, talk about your holiday with Lucas and his friend.
Yeah.
You've gone to Spain.
Yeah.
And had you been there before? So this was 2019?
2019. Do you know what? It's the first time that we've been back there together since his dad and I split up, because it's his dad's parents' apartment. So Lucas knows that apartment very well, and he'd been there since tiny baby. So he knows that apartment so well. He knows the area really well. And so it was the first time that I'd actually gone back since his dad and I split up, because one thing that I was really key on was that his dad and I had a good relationship.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a screamy, shouty woman, and what will be, will be. And sometimes, things just don't work out, and that's perfectly fine. So, but his dad and I had a great relationship, and he was always welcome in our home, and he'd come and he'd have a cup of tea or some food if he wanted it. If Lucas wanted to show him something new in the house, he would. He's very welcome. If Lucas wanted to take him upstairs in his bedroom and show him stuff, very, very welcome, because growing up, there was such tension in my home with arguing, and it was horrible, that I just never wanted that for my son. So that was a beautiful relationship. Yeah, sadly, I've not spoken to him since the funeral, but then that's another story, isn't it, for another time? I know, it's so sad, but I think everyone deals with grief differently.
Yeah.
I do think his dad, is not great at dealing with it, but anyway. 2019, we went on holiday and had a fantastic holiday. The guys just did what they wanted, and Lucas would make friends anywhere. And I can remember this one day walking down onto the beach with him, and next thing, all these kids start running up to him, these young kids, and going, Luca! And he's like, hi. And it was all these children, a family from Morocco. And they were like pulling him over, to the parents, and the parents were greeting him and everything. And then I was introduced to them. And these are just people he'd met on the beach, swimming. You know, he just made friends everywhere he went, and he's so great.
How old was Lucas? Lucas was 12.
Great. Lucas was 12. So it was late August, and then in September he would have been 13. So he was looking forward to coming back to school, starting a new year in school, because he was in his first year of high school and he would have been going back to his second year of high school. So he had a fantastic holiday. A couple of months before, he'd been to Thailand with his dad and his dad's girlfriend, and they had a great time. But he said, "You know what, Mum, this has been the best holiday." And I was like, "Well, you had an amazing holiday in Thailand." He said, "I know, but here we've just done what we want to do." And every night they would go to the skate park. So his friend had his scooter and Lucas had his rollerblades, and they just went to the skate park and they had a blast. So I joined them a little bit later. They'd have a couple of hours on their own, then I'd just go a little bit later and just have a few hours there with them before they came back. But they just he had a great time, you know, just being Lucas.
Yeah.
And so it was the last day of our holiday and we'd had a great time. The night before, we'd been to a really nice restaurant. I'd forgotten to take I'd taken my handbag, but I forgot to take my purse. So Lucas and I had to go back. The guy was like, "No, come in the morning." I said, "No, I feel bad." So I went back that evening with Lucas, and as we were walking back, he said, "You know, Mom, I've had a really great holiday." And he said, "And I'm looking forward to my future." And the next day, actually, when we got back to the UK, he had an audition with The Voice Kids. So he was looking forward to that. And then later on, he said he was going to have trials with, he was going to get into the youth team for Sale Sharks. So he had a lot of things going on. He had his band. He had a couple of gigs lined up for him.
He had a beautiful voice.
Yeah. So he was, you know, he was really looking forward. And I think it was about an hour and a half, 2 hours before he died, we went swimming, and he told me all the things that he had planned. You know, I am going to be a singer, I am going to be an actor, and I'm going to be a rugby player. I might be either or I'll probably be all three. He said. So, and I believe that he would be all three as well, you know.
Yeah.
So I packed the cases. We'd all showered, we got dressed and everything. I packed the cases were ready. Passports on top of cases, and I was making sandwiches. Lucas was talking to me in the kitchen, and then I asked him to take the Hoover and put it in the lounge. And then as I came back out of the kitchen, because the kitchen was one end, they'd have the lounge and then the balcony, I came out of the kitchen and his friend came out of the bedroom at the same time, pretty much the same time. And his friend looked weird, and I said, "Lucas, what do you want on your, you know, do you want some mayonnaise on your sandwich?" And his friend just looked at me and he went, "Lucas has just gone over the balcony." And I said, I don't know what that means. And I said, "If you're joking." He said, "No, Lucas had gone over the balcony." And I looked at his friend's face and it had drained. So I ran through the apartment and looked over, and my son was on the floor, 7 floors down. So then you know, and I said the strangest thing. I remember saying, "Oh my God, Paul," which is my brother. "What the heck? Why didn't you look after him? You said you were going to take care of him." And then I ran. I wouldn't get in the lift. I ran down 7 flights of stairs because I was petrified that the lift wouldn't, you know, get stuck.
Yeah.
So I ran down 7 flights of stairs. And when I got down, the apartment that we stayed in, a lot of Spanish people owned apartments there, and they would come on holiday from Madrid. So there's a lot of consultants and doctors there. So already Lucas had people around him. There was 2 consultants around him, and we were right on the beach. So the paramedics were called very quickly, and they were there. And also police. There was lots of undercover police, plainclothes police. They were there, and police. So everyone got there very, very quickly. And I remember Lucas was on the ground, and he was struggling to breathe. And for the first time, I couldn't help him.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to him, "You know, what the hell's happened, Lucas? What's happened?" And I just saw my boy, he couldn't breathe. And everyone was around him trying to save him, you know. And they all worked so hard. And I remember the policeman saying, Nicola, you need to come back up to the apartment because we have to see. I have to see. So I said very quickly. So I remember going back up in the lift and I'm thinking, duh! We went up to the apartment and I remember the policeman walking in with me and he went, oh my gosh, Nicola, I'm so sorry. Because he saw the cases packed, the passports on top. He saw the sandwiches in the kitchen, ready to be served pretty much. So I just remember giving him the keys and I ran back down. I said, I have to be with my son. I have to be with my son. So I ran back down the stairs. And then I got back to Lucas and I tried, I'm fine, it's okay. This is grief.
Yeah.
This is grief. And I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And I remember I got back down and they couldn't help him. And then they told me he died in front of me. And then they tried to pull me away and I remember I didn't want to be screamy and all like that, but I do remember when they told me that. I know I dropped to my knees and I heard that sound again. The sound that came out of my mum's mouth, that primeval scream that comes from the soul. And I think it's just the sound a mum makes, I think, because, you have such a connection with your child. Mm-hmm. And I remember hearing that sound and thinking, oh my gosh, my child. And then I just lay with Lucas for, I think it was about an hour and a half before they came and took him away in a body bag. And Lucas had the most amazing green eyes. And I remember opening his eyes and looking at them, thinking, I'll never see these eyes again. I remember talking to him, looking at his beautiful face and telling him how much I love him. It's so painful. And it's brutal then and it's brutal now, and I go back and I think it's important that we talk about it and that, this is grief because grief is love. And I'll grieve for Lucas for the rest of my life because I love him for the rest of my life. So this isn't something that I'll get over.
Yeah.
But it is something that I eventually, was able to embrace and work with because, horrific then and horrific now when I go back into it. But again, I think it's important that we talk about our emotions and I allow those emotions to go through me.
Yeah.
And this is why I do what I do now and why I do the talks, the podcast, because we can't run away from it and we shouldn't run away from it. And it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
And what I'm talking about to you is it's real life. This is real life. It's not Instagrammable. It's not Instagram life. This is it.
Yeah.
And some days are good and some days aren't so good. And the days that aren't good, I just take my time with it. Take my time.
Just give yourself grace because it will just show up different every day,
But I show up, and that's important. So that was awful. And so I then stayed in Spain for 7 days. I think 7 to 9 days. I can't quite remember now. What happened was I had a friend staying who lives in Spain. So immediately I'd called him. So he came. So he was there, thank goodness. And then 2 friends of mine flew out from England. Everyone wanted to fly out, as you can imagine, but I just couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
So I stayed with my friend while we organised everything from here, and I have amazing friends. Sorry, from everything from Spain, we organised, and then I have amazing friends here that organised all the funeral and everything like that for me. So there's a lot of communication. But 3 days after Lucas died, when I was in Spain, I did try and take my own life. because I couldn't believe it. And I just thought, what's the point? There's no point, because Lucas was my life. And because at times my life had been challenging as a child, I put my life on hold so that he could have an amazing life.
Yeah.
Everything I did for Lucas, because that was important to me, that he, had the love, the care, the support that I felt growing up at times I didn't have.
So do you, when you say there was no point, which, your only child, and then,
To my own, yeah.
He's
my only child, and he's my life, and I just couldn't see a way forward without him. And the pain and the trauma. So don't forget, not all grief has trauma, but all trauma has grief. And the thing is, my child, he died in front of me. I watched him die, and I couldn't help him. And for the first time in his life, I couldn't help him. And so there was so much trauma attached to the death of Lucas. And as I say, I tried to take my own life, and I know that I got tranquilized heavily after that. For a few days, I think I was a bit out of it. And quite right, because it's about looking after yourself and getting the care. And luckily, one of my friends that flew out, she organised she had doctors there for me. I remember she had someone come and give me a massage, Reiki, energy work. She was amazing. So it was, and and it's about the support. It's about your tribe, and quickly, you find out who your tribe is.
Yeah.
Because the minute Lucas died, a piece of me died with him, and I was no longer that person that I was then.
Yeah.
20th of August, 2019, my life, I changed. Everything changed. And that's something that, if anyone out there is listening, or whoever's listening to this, that they have a grief or a trauma or a loss, whatever that is, you are not the same person that you were before that.
Yeah.
And everything changed for me. Everything. Who I was, my identity, everything, and I question, am I still a mom? Because whose mum am I now? Well, I am still a mum, and I'm Lucas's mum, and I'll always be a mum. But the crazy question, that you ask yourself.
It's like the sense of no identity, feeling like that's been stripped from you.
Yeah. Because, and also they say, when your child dies, then that's your future. You lose your future, because everything you do is for your child.
Yeah.
So, yeah. They say when a parent dies, you lose your past. When a spouse dies, you lose your present. And then when a child dies, you lose your future. But that's actually, it changes. Everything changes. And it's about really embracing that change. So then eventually I flew back to the UK. I think it was 9 days later, because I wouldn't leave Spain without Lucas. So I flew back. And that was traumatic in itself, because I was deeply traumatized, and I couldn't speak properly. I was stammering, I was stuttering, and I had to prepare my family, because I said, I can't put a sentence together very well. I'll stammer and I stutter, and it's different, because I was in such trauma and such shock. And my uncle was at the airport, and he just hugged me. God, I remember him. He just held me. Oh, my Uncle Stephen, bless him. And then I went back to my mum's, and all my family were there. It was awful. It was so sad. I'd come back without my son. And
so surreal, like just not
real. And I couldn't speak. I was stammering and I was stuttering. My brain was trying to catch up with what I wanted to say, because my brain would. I always say that the minute Lucas died, my brain was like this, and it went and just exploded and closed down, which it did to protect me, because what had happened was so traumatic. So shocking.
They say it's like a brain injury, like a severe brain injury where
Oh, it definitely is.
it does it to protect yourself, but
Yeah.
obviously at the same time just almost just shutting down like a marshmallow in there for it. There may as well be, you know, because you're just not processing anything.
Not at all. Not at all. So that was shocking. And then, you know, the funeral was amazing. I had so many people at Lucas's funeral, kids and adults together, and it was so beautiful. Uh, you know, and it was a celebration of life. I didn't want everyone in black. I asked everyone to wear their best bright outfits because, you know, Lucas always wore those flowery, fancy shirts, and, you know, and he was such a bubbly character. If he saw you in the street, he'd come over and he'd hug you, or, you know, high five. He'd always shake your hand. If he'd never met you before and I'd introduced him or someone, he'd always shake your hand. And I remember his first day in school, he said, you know, Mum, I introduced myself to a few people and put my hand up. They didn't know what to do. I was like, well, yeah, old man Dan.
Yeah.
So the funeral was it was hard. It was so hard, but oh my gosh. It was beautiful. And he had his choir there because he was in the choir at school. So the choir were there singing. Oh my God, it was beautiful. We had Love of My Life played from Freddie Mercury when he left. It was just a gorgeous service. I got up and spoke, and which I can't believe how I did that, but I did it. I remember saying, "Come on, Lucas, I need you to have my back," and he did, and he had my back, and I got up and I spoke, and yeah, it was good. And then we had a celebration of life at Knowsley Hall, a great rock star venue, absolutely fitting for Lucas. And all his friends were playing rugby, and it was just gorgeous. All his friends, and children deal with grief differently than adults. They dip in and they come out. They can be sad one minute and they can laugh the next. And what was beautiful as I looked out of that window, I remember seeing them all playing rugby. And I thought, wow, you know, that's a real passion of Lucas's. And this is grief too. They were laughing, they were jumping on each other. And I thought and I hope they all remember this.
Yeah.
And it's not, the funeral is not just sad, but it is about celebrating that life and taking that life with you.
Yeah.
And I believe a lot of his friends have done that because if they see me, or you know, they want to celebrate Lucas's birthday or the day he, you know, the anniversary when he died, they say, "What are you doing? Are you okay? Can we meet up at the bench?" You know. So yeah, so kids deal with stuff so differently than adults.
Yeah. And with Nicola, with from you getting home from Spain and then the celebration of life for Lucas, what was that time frame for you? Was that a couple of weeks or fairly?
Because I buried Lucas on his 13th birthday, so it will be just over 2 weeks. They were amazing, really, when I think about it, because the way Lucas died, they had to make sure that there was no funny business or anything like that.
Yeah,
so I had to go back to the police station, make another statement, which was awful, by the way, but I understand now it had to be done. Lucas's dad flew out for 24 hours and made a statement. And then when I got back, I was dealing with the police here. But leading up to the funeral, one of my best friends, well, first of all, I just said I went back to my family's home, my mum's house, saw my family, and then my friend drove me or my uncle drove me to my house. And my friends, I had about 3 or 4 friends in my house waiting for me so that I didn't come home to an empty home. So that was amazing. Amazing. And then I remember when I came in, they were there and they said, "Do you want to go up to Lucas's room on your own?" And I said, "I do." So I just went up to Lucas's room and had a cry, I guess, you know. And then leading up to the funeral, my friend Bev stayed with me. God bless her husband, David. Thank you, David. She came and lived with me for the week leading up to the funeral, and she made sure that I got sleep. She made sure that there was someone there. She made sure that people, because I had so many people coming to the house, that they would come, but they would also leave at a good time.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to see anyone, she wouldn't let them in. She
Yeah.
was a proper viler, but she made sure that I ate healthily. You know, that she was there for me.
Yeah.
It was amazing because I couldn't be there for me because
No.
I was all over the place. I was
Yeah.
all over the place. And that first year, Lindsay, I don't really remember it because obviously I was in deep trauma, and just even trying to read something, I couldn't read anything. I remember that the words would just bounce up and kind of hit me in the face. So I listened to a lot of audio books, podcasts. I walked a lot because also COVID hit, so that was again a great time for me
I mean,
because it was
that's
healing.
isolation in itself, wasn't it?
It
Like,
was healing
just,
time,
yeah.
and I was able, you know, obviously I went out for walks and things like that, and walked miles and miles and miles, and then I'd be like, oh, where am I? So
Yeah.
that was really good too. But that first year was a dark time as well because there would be times that, you know, I would just not get out of bed, or I would get out of bed, I would shower. I remember one time I got dressed and ready for work, and I walked down the stairs. I put my hand on the front door handle, and I couldn't even open the door. And I sat on the stairs and I just screamed and cried. And I remember just watching many times, whether it was on the stairs or in the kitchen, on the floor, on the bedroom floor, in the lounge, I would just watch day turn into night and then back into day again. Because you can't, you know, the sleep, it's very difficult to sleep. You're waking up at 3 in the morning thinking, you know, has this happened? A friend of mine, she came to stay with me. And I remember I said, will you stay in the same bed as me, sleep in my bed with me? She was like, yeah. And she said she remembers me waking up early hours in the morning, and she said you went, and then she said you looked around and then you just lay back down. And I said, I remember that. And it was because I thought I was dreaming, and then I realized I wasn't dreaming, it was true.
You've just gone through that every moment, you know, that you have, although beautiful, you know, you're dreaming about your boy, and you know that's some beautiful dreams, but then it's like reliving reality again,
Yeah.
waking up out of that, you know.
The reality that, you know, oh, this is my reality. I don't have my son anymore. I don't have my son. So, and also 2 weeks after the funeral, 3 weeks, you kind of stop hearing from people,
Yeah.
and because people get on with their lives, and then you're just left to pick up your messy, shabby life and make something of it. So, yeah, so people just went about the business, and quite right. But, you know, if anyone's out there that has a friend or knows someone who's dealing with grief, just be there, you know, and that be there could be a message, a text,
Yeah.
just let them know that you are there, whether they want to see you or not. And it's
Yeah.
important that you do show up for people who are grieving.
Yeah.
And that showing up is just sitting with them,
Yeah.
letting them talk or not. Because
And
it's
it's
a
more
really tough
important
time.
then, you know, it's the after, isn't it? That, like you say,
Yeah.
it's the silence is really
Loud.
loud. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, people go back to their lives and, you know, carry on. And then, you know, how was that for you? Like close friendships? Did you lose friends? Did the dynamics change? Obviously,
Yeah.
you know,
Dynamics change. I have lost friends, and I've allowed them to step away. I didn't try and keep them
no,
because also I'm changing and changed. And so when you allow people to leave your life, it makes space for new people to step up who are more aligned with who you are now.
yeah,
Because I'm different. I'm not that person anymore.
yeah,
You know, even things with, you know, I've got a great relationship with my antenatal gang. There's 5 of us, and we've been friends since, you know, we started an antenatal class, so since our babies. But I find that really difficult to be with all of us together, because all their children are growing up, driving, doing all their exams, doing, you know, having part-time jobs, going off to university. And I love them. I don't love them any less, but I just find it really difficult to go out as the 5 of us together.
Yeah.
One at a time, easier, but to go out as a group. And I have explained that.
Yeah.
And sometimes people understand and sometimes people don't, but it's not for me to worry about, you know, because I know that I'm not that person.
Yeah.
And again, with all the studies that I've done and the fact that I've re-educated myself, I see and I hear things completely different now anyway. So I've evolved, and that's just who I am now. And I love who I am now.
Good. I just, going back to what you said earlier on in the recording, you said that the old Nicola was a real people pleaser.
Yeah.
And has that changed for you?
Yes. Yes.
Good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The great thing about because it's going to be 6 years in August since Lucas died, you know, and there isn't a day, a moment that I don't think about my beautiful boy, and I miss Lucas dreadfully, but I have this love and this connection with him now, and we had an amazing relationship when he was here, and oh my gosh, I love the bones of him. But this connection that I have with him now is even deeper. The love is even deeper. You know, it's different because he's not here physically, but I do sense him and feel him around me, and he's pushing me on and going, "Come on, Mum, you've got this," and it's what my son would expect.
Yeah.
So, what was the question again?
So I said to you about what, you know, at the start of the podcast, at the start of recording, you said that you were, you know, Dubai Nicola and early years.
Sorry. So what this has allowed me, excuse me. So basically the last 6 years, what I've been able to do, I've had amazing therapy. I found a therapist that works for me, you know, because that's really important, that you find the therapist that fits you, because not all of the first time I had therapy, grief work, it was horrific. And that's what made me think, right, once I'm in a better place, I have got to retrain and re-educate myself, and so that I can support other people, because what I've just experienced, I don't want anyone else to experience that. It was not a good experience. So what this whole journey for me has done is it's allowed me to be myself, and I've had so much therapy so that I'm able to show up for my clients with learned wisdom, not only with the education, but with learned wisdom. And I think that's, you know, amazing. So I've been able to take all the layers off and all the masks, and for the first time, I'm 57, so for the first time in 50 years, I would say, I have a meaningful relationship with myself, and I absolutely love myself, because I understand now all that stuff that was put on me, all those insecurities, they were never mine. They were never mine. They were the people that were supposed to care for me and supposed to, you know, I was supposed to look up to and things like that. It was all their stuff. It was all their stuff. So I'm totally at ease with who I am. I'm proud of how far I've come. And I'm excited about, you know, my future as well.
Amazing. So with, like you and I have spoken, obviously we're both very spiritual, hence you feeling Lucas, you know, he's not here in the physical sense, but so much around you, and you know, like you said, spurring you on, which is just beautiful. With your work now, so all our listeners, our audience can hear what you actually do, and where can they find you?
So they can find me on my website, www.nicola-marshall.com, or they can find me on Instagram, nicolamarshall.griefandgrace. So I always like to put little bits and bobs up on there. And I work online and face to face. And the way I work is I've retrained in all the modalities that have supported me. So hypnotherapy, NLP, EMDR, which is rapid eye movement for trauma, and lots of other things. And a grief and loss educator through David Kessler, who, is amazing grief educator. So the way I work now is I do grief, loss, and growth, and I allow people to allow themselves to be themselves. So I work around what I've developed as a new life experience. So I use the different modalities because it's not just about the death of someone. It's about the loss of a job, a relationship, a lifestyle. So it's about the loss of self. And that's what I didn't have. I'd lost myself many, many years ago. And over the last 6 years, I've really found and stepped into my true authentic self, as I say. And it's been so liberating to take off all those layers and those masks. And so that's what along with the grief and loss and the growth, that's what I allow people to allow themselves to be themselves. And it's about being able to put the baggage down that we drag from decade to decade to decade. But the baggage isn't a bad thing, but it's about taking the good things from the past and learning from it, dropping what we don't need, and then moving forward with that.
And like you said, often it's not even ours. We're just carrying
something. It's something that's been put on us. And no one makes us feel happy, sad, or angry. That's down to us.
Yeah.
So, therapy is so valuable, and I just wish more people would get on with that and understand the value in it, because we have this persona from being a teenager and we think that's who we are. And it's not, it's just a persona. And we drag that into our adult life and we behave like that teenager, but it's not. It's about letting that person go and moving in and growing into who we are now. And that is so liberating. And even when I'm with my clients, oh my goodness, I can see the difference just after one session with them. And it is so beautiful to see. I see their faces lighter, they're brighter, and I'm attuned to Reiki, but my energy work is different now. It's off the scale. So it's so exciting. So I'm so excited to work with my clients and basically just allow them to be themselves. It's beautiful because most of the time we're trying to please other people. We're trying to be, as I said, something that we are not.
Yeah.
And the beauty is when you get to know you and when you find
and it's just exhausting. It's exhausting to even try and do that, then keep that facade and spin all those plates and, do all that, isn't it?
It's so exhausting, and it's so beautiful to just be, and I know now that when I'm with clients, I'm just me, and I am who I am. I don't try and be anything else. So it's exciting times.
They need that because they're coming to you so vulnerable and never had any counselling or therapy of any description. And they're coming. I mean, I know, even friends since I started the podcast who are really good friends, and then they've sort of messaged me because they've listened to an episode and gone, you know what, that's it now. I'm going seeing somebody, and and I've kind of not even known or really necessarily disclosing too much, but they're telling me they're taking the steps. Thank you. Or it was one of your guests said this, and this, and it can be something so simple, and they've gone, that's it. I'm doing it. Yeah. It's so important. And so on that, Nick, what would you say, and I know obviously I'm from England as well, and I know it's different, like getting therapies and, someone who's not in a position to get therapy, affordability, or what would you say to that person, the first steps then to get some kind of help or talk to someone? outside
Well,
the circle?
yeah, there's so many peer-to-peer groups, isn't there? I started a meet and grief cafe over here, which I'm going to be putting online as well soon. And that is just a safe space where we meet. It's not therapy, but it's a safe space where we're all grieving the loss, the death of someone. So it is about the death of someone. And it's a safe space to talk and to just be. And you learn from other people's grief and other people's experience. And it's so beautiful that I've been able to, I started that, 3 years ago, and I just put something out on Facebook and Instagram. And I've been able to watch people who are still coming. And it's just a safe space. And they've really grown with their grief, because I fought my grief for years. For that first 2 years, I was fighting grief. And then it wasn't until I was like, you're my friend. And then I befriended grief and basically allowed all those emotions to flow through me. Because every single one of your emotions deserves a space at your table.
Yeah.
And it's really important that you embrace that. And vulnerability, it is our superpower. So it's about finding some place that's comfortable for you. And there are lots of peer-to-peer support groups, whether it's support for suicide, a death of a child, or just general grief. So, look out in your local area. There will be something there. But if you can afford therapy, it's worth the investment, not only from your time, but financially. And if you're going to invest financially and with your time, because what I have also realized is time is precious, and that's all we have.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter about your designer bags or shoes. That time is precious, and it's about spending time with the people we love and the people that love us and want to be with us. Don't waste your time with people that don't really want to be with you or are there for, a reason other than you.
Yeah.
So look out in your local area. There will be someone. But when you're ready for therapy, then that's the time to have therapy. No one can force you, and it has to be something that you actually want to do.
Yeah.
Because, as I said, time and money are very precious. So,
I think it's such a natural thing for, when you're going through grief or trauma, however that looks for you, for your circle to say, do you think you need to talk to someone? Do you want to see someone? And exactly what you said. I think it's a timing thing, unless as a close circle of family, people intervene and go, okay, we need to do something here. We need to get someone in, and understanding that. But I think it's important, like you said, it is a timing thing, especially if you're going to spend the money. I know if I go to therapy, I might go, and we just adore her. She's amazing. But first and foremost, we trust her.
yes.
And so important. There's not, and I know that's built over time. That didn't come straight away, but we trust her explicitly. But then we may have, and my kids are the same, we may have a session and then just not be okay for a few weeks. I'm not saying, cured, but just to sit with the tools that she's shared or the conversation that we've had. Like you said before, is because different emotions will come through then because of the systems that we've had. So rather than just snowball straight to the next, I like to pause. Sometimes I do back to back because I think it's necessary, week after the other. But then, I haven't been for quite a few weeks because I've just had to process things, and that's too. Because I have the tools.
Yeah. Totally. It's about, I think, a good therapist. Well, first of all, you have to have that rapport with the therapist. And I know I'm not for everyone and everyone's not for me. So I don't take everyone on. And also it's about meeting that person where they are. With whatever emotions going on with them. And then it's going at their pace, and I go at their pace. So I let them dictate, direct, I always say, let's have 5 sessions, but we'll go at your pace. And the results are beautiful, And because you know, I always say as well, you've got this grief umbrella, and underneath it, you've got stress, anxiety, insomnia, confidence. There's so much. And then what I'm finding is when I'm working with the client, other stuff's coming up. But I can see that and I can feel that, you know, I'm big on energy. So I'm always feeling into energies,
Yeah.
and we're able to work through that as well. So I absolutely love what I do, you know, and it found me. It
Yeah.
found me through the
Believe that.
tragic death of my beautiful, or the tragic death of my beautiful son Lucas. But
Yeah.
again, you know, it's what you would expect.
Yeah.
And you know, he's like, "Come on, Mum, you've got this." So yeah.
Yeah. A question before we finish today for you, doing the work that you do, which is so incredible. And like you said, there's without a shadow of a doubt, Lucas is, pushing you forward.
Yeah.
But how do for you, and you said it before as well, like grief is grief. It doesn't have a time frame, a time limit.
No,
Time is
no,
no healer. It
no.
it's adjustment, and some days short better than others and some hours short better than others. But how do you, doing what you do, helping others and circumstances, and I would imagine every different client that you have is on a different journey, but when you come home from that, how do you not, you being so warm and beautifully kind-hearted, how do you not come away from that and carry that as well with you dealing what you're dealing with? Do you know what I mean?
Because, yeah, I know exactly what you mean, because it's not mine. It doesn't
Yeah,
belong to me. It's
yeah,
theirs. And I see it as theirs. So when I'm working with it, I take none of it on. I don't know how they feel. I can imagine, but I don't know how they feel until
yeah,
they tell me. So I see it as their stuff. And so there's no way I would bring any of that home with me. I'm really good at seeing that's yours. You know, I kind of do a 360 around them, and I can see where it is and where it sits with them.
yeah,
And I'm great at leaving that there, because I've got my own stuff, you know, that I deal
yeah,
with.
of
And
course.
it's, and you know, and I still have therapy, and that's so important for me. And I have
Yeah,
an amazing mentor that I work with as well. So I'm growing every day, because don't forget, you're not even the person you were yesterday. And you
yeah,
have different experiences. Whatever you experienced yesterday will bring you to where you are now.
yeah,
So I'm really about the growth, and I embrace that. I embrace that. But it's not about leaving, you know, everything behind, but it is about, you don't need to worry about stuff that happened 10 years ago, 5 years ago, because it's happened, it's been, and it's gone. What
yeah,
did you learn? Take what you learned from it and move forward with it.
yeah,
But don't carry those heavy bags with you. Put them down. Give
yeah,
yourself a break and think, right, where am I? Who am I? And and ask yourself the question, do I have a meaningful relationship? Who do I have a meaningful relationship with? Well, the first one should be yourself.
yeah,
From there.
yeah. Love that. You're an absolute star.
Thank you so much. What a gorgeous interview. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for the time and the space. And thank you to everyone who's listening. And I hope, even if you just get one small nugget, I hope that supports you in going forward with who you are now.